welcome back, everybody. Hope you had a lovely lunch. Unfortunately, we couldn't supply it on this occasion. In future, hopefully we can, when we all get back together again. I really enjoyed the morning, and I think we're up for a really good couple of sessions this afternoon as well, starting with science festivals. They're a really important part of the community these days in terms of public engagement, do a fantastic job. And we have an impressive, indeed inspirational person, I would say, in to chair the session. So we've got Howie Firth, who's going to be chairing this session. And Howie, I want to use the words, you are the man that invented science festivals. That must be pretty close to the truth. You know, you go way back in terms of the Edinburgh International Festival, and you've just completed another Orkney Science Festival, and I know you're involved with many others.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Anna. And really the invention was the city of Edinburgh. I had the job of putting the concept into reality. And indeed, I think it would be a nice time to set the scene with 3 quotes from that time. Quote, "I just don't understand the concept." Quote, "Science is a serious business." Quote, "We would not want to be associated with anything like that." Well, these were some early reactions to the news some 30 plus years ago that Edinburgh was going to produce a new type of event, a science festival. So that's the kind of background.
Yes. Well, we're all very inspired by what you've achieved over your lifetime. So over to you to chair this session.
Oh, thank you very much indeed, Alan. Well, with that market research in advance, Edinburgh consulted widely, and indeed they did receive quite a number of negative comments and also some positive ones. Well, the city wisely decided to listen to the latter, to the positive ones, and forged ahead with the world's first science festival in 1989. Early doubters have been won over to become strong and valued supporters. It's amazing to see the scale and the quality and the support for the Edinburgh Science Festival today, and amazing too to see the wonderfully diverse and original range of science festivals around the world. We're going to hear now in this session from 3 people very much involved with science festivals. And first of all, from Edinburgh Science Festival itself and its head of learning manager, Laura McLister, who joins us now. And Laura, I know you look after all the family content. You've worked with the Edinburgh Science team for the past 11 years in various roles. And before that, you were at the Science Museum in London. But indeed, with Edinburgh, I guess it was a coming home, because that's when you got your degree in astrophysics. So Laura, over to you to tell us more about what's happening in Edinburgh today.
Oh, thank you very much. What a lovely welcome, and thank you very much for having me today. So yeah, I just wanted to tell you a bit about Edinburgh Science and the festival and all the things that we do. So I'm just going to share my screen with you, so you can all see this. One moment while it pops up. So hopefully now you should all be able to see that. So Edinburgh Science, yes, well, we got Harry's first given us a great introduction there. So yes, 1989, it did all start. I wanted to start the presentation by just giving you a bit of background into what Edinburgh Science is all about, as we're now known. We are an educational charity. Our mission broadly is to inspire, encourage and challenge people of all ages and backgrounds to explore and understand the world around them. So no small feat up against us there. And we work all year round, and we have 3 areas of the organisation. very briefly wanted to take you through. So the one that we're probably most well known for, as we've spoken about, is Edinburgh Science Festival. And I'm not going to talk too much about that just now, because I'm going to come back and talk more about it in detail in a second. As mentioned, it was the world's first public celebration of science and technology as a festival, and we're still one of Europe's largest festivals. Then we also have Edinburgh Science Learning. This looks after all our programmes that we do with schools and communities. So we're most well known for Generation Science, which is our schools touring programme, and also Careers Hive, which is our take on a careers event and trying to encourage more pupils to think about taking STEM subjects and why that's a good idea for them. And lastly, our third arm is Edinburgh Science Worldwide. So we do lots of international work throughout the year, including being a regular programme managed partner of the annual Abu Dhabi Science Festival, which is a little picture of that there. So yeah, busy all year round. But if we focus I just wanted to start with that because as an organisation, our aim of the things that we create and do, so we want all our events to make information that is accessible and engaging. So that's always like our priority of what we're trying to achieve. But more than that, I think we're known for creating content that is really hands-on and really immersive. That's what we kind of pride ourselves on being a little bit different. And we have a really strong emphasis on making sure that our content has context and includes quite a strong story arc, which we find very helpful when we're trying to engage the public. So the Edinburgh Science Festival itself, it takes place every year during the Easter break, apart from this year where due to lots of circumstances it took place during the summer, but we'll be back to Easter for 2022. So those are the dates there. And really it has a huge range of events that take place across the city. We have exhibitions of all different types, some of which you can see here. So that's one in the National Museum of Scotland aimed at families, which is hands-on and interactive. We have photographic exhibitions, we have art exhibitions, we have workshops, drop-ins. For this year, we had a big emphasis on outdoor walking trails, tours. We do presentations, discussions, talks, panel events. Essentially, if you can think of an event format, we will do it at our festival. And we kind of break up our audience into kind of two main sectors. So one is our family audience, which is very big for us. Yes, we partner with some major city venues where both ourselves and they put on events for the festival. And that can be really, again, exhibitions, workshops. But we also have our flagship family venue at the City Arts Centre, which has 5 floors of hands-on interactive activities, and kind of the point that I was coming back to before of some of the photos you can see here, always hands-on, always interactive, and a lot of the time immersive. So really taking them into an environment. There's an example there of our Jungles Explorers, where kids get to become jungle explorers and explore the science of sound while they're there. And then the other main audience that we have, I should say that family audience for us, we normally count as anything between the ages of 5 and around 12. We do things for under 5s as well, but our core audience is that age range. And then our other audience, main audience, is adults and young people as well. So again, this takes a really wide variety of formats. Most common, I think, which are known about are discussions and talks and presentations, but we also do workshops for adults, we do interactive dinners and drink sessions and all sorts of things. So we, again, as with the family programme, try to keep it very interactive and hands-on. And when we talk about adults and young people, again, the age range usually starts from about 14 plus, but we do some specific events for 18 plus when drinks are involved. So I wanted to talk a little bit to help you kind of understand the things that we look for in events. As much as we would love to take every event that existed within our festival. There just isn't the time, the money, or the space to do that. So when we're looking at events to take part in the festival, we look for a few different things. First of all, we look at kind of things that fit within our festival. So every year the festival has a theme, and this year it is revolutions. But to be honest, that theme is really broad, and we always keep it very broad so that we can include a variety of things, but we try to look for events that fit within that. We also look for things that would attract a really wide and broad audience, and that where they can practice best practice communication and experiences. And then the other things here are kind of things that are a bit, well, not just unique to us, but specifically things that we look for. So in terms of styles and formats, we're very much about, like I said, hands-on, investigative, immersive events. Our ethos, we try to look for things that are novel, but novel can be in a variety of things. It doesn't have to be the thing that you're doing. It could be the way that you're doing or the format that you're doing it. Entertaining and, of course, accessible and inclusive to as many people as we can. We also put a really high emphasis on the staff and the people delivering the events. Our kind of a real core part of what we do is that we believe our science communicators and the people who are communicating are what bring the events alive. So, you know, we put quite a lot of effort and energy into training those people, and we often have quite a high number of staff to participants in our events. And then also we look for practicalities. It has to be something that's appropriate for the audience, whether that's in the content or the length of duration, and it needs to be planned and safe. So these are always things that we're looking for in our events. So just lastly, I wanted to focus on how and why you would get involved with Edinburgh Science. Well, the how is we every year do a call for ideas. So it opened about a month ago, and for this year we'll be closing on the 15th of October, so a little bit more time if you want to submit a proposal. But that happens every year. We advertise that and go out and brief usually people on what that's going to be. And you can submit an application for that. So you can go online, and there's lots of information there to help. So getting involved is quite hopefully straightforward. Why would you get involved with the Edinburgh Science Festival? Well, the audience that we have is really wide and varying, and it's a really large number. We have some great venues which allow us to access a lot of people across the city. But for me, it's a lot of fun. It's so wonderful communicating with the public. They are just think of things from a different perspective that you will never have thought of. They are the perfect objective person to look at what you're doing and make you think again about what you're saying and how you're saying it and what's most interesting. Why is it relevant to them? So for me, they're kind of the important and reasons that, you know, I think people get involved with festivals. And kind of as a bit of a side, a finisher, we also try to do quite a lot of training and support with people that take part in the festival. I talked quite a lot there about our ethos and best practice, and I'm not massively keen on some of those words because as a sector, we're not great at all agreeing what best practice is. But we want it to be effective, and there's lots of outcomes we all want to achieve. So we do create a number of training opportunities, whether that is in presenting or whether that is in creating events. And that's a new part of our organisation, and it's growing all the time. And we hope to try and make that more regular year on year. But also for this year, we've created a lot of support on our website about our audience to give guidance and things to think about when you first start trying to create an activity. We're not expecting people to come and produce in Jungle Explorers, because that took us a lot of time and money to create. But there are things that you can take from that experience that apply across all scales of activities. And we're always at the end of the phone as well. We're very welcome for people calling us up with their ideas and chatting them through. So that was a bit of a whirlwind. I know I was only meant to have 5 minutes. I don't know how long that was, but hopefully that gave you a bit of an insight into Edinburgh Science and what we're all about.
Well, that's fascinating, Laura, and don't go away, because there is an opportunity for questions at the end, and they're already coming in.
Of course. Oh, great.
Yes, I should say to all the group, just send them in on the chat, and Laura will be there, and as will our next two speakers. And in fact, we're going on now to a different type of festival with a range of locations. This is Explorathon. To tell us about it is Dr. Suzanne McIndoe, who's the Public Engagement Manager at the University of Strathclyde. Her background is in theoretical physics. That was her first degree at Trinity College Dublin, and also her PhD at University College Cork, which was in ultra-cold quantum gases. So, Suzanne, I'm looking forward to what you've got to say, and also to finding out about what the Explorathon is.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Cool.
Yes,
let's get the tech stuff out of the way, and let's see if, can you see my slide?
That's yes, that's it there. And
perfect. Okay, we're off to an excellent start. So thank you for the lovely introduction. Yes, I used to be one of you, and now I work in public engagement. And I'm just going to tell you a little bit about Explorathon. Give you just start off with a brief history. Tough act to follow. We are Scotland's version of European Researchers' Night, and we've been running since 2014, which to me felt impressive. But really, compared to the Edinburgh Science Festival, we are baby, but we do our best. It's typically on the last Friday of September, which if you look at your calendars, that was last Friday. So if I look a bit frazzled, that's why. And it's been funded through Horizon 2020. So this is kind of something that happens. You get European Researchers' Nights events happening all over Europe. So the stuff in Malta, Sweden, Ireland, Spain, a bunch of other places. So it is a kind of a big, giant festival of festivals. And the Scotland version, we've got people from Aberdeen covering that city. Ourselves, Strathclyde and Glasgow, look after Glasgow events. St Andrews cover St Andrews, Dundee and the surrounding area. And Edinburgh University, Heriot Watt have joined at various times to cover Edinburgh City. And obviously we try and kind of spread our reach beyond the cities, but that's obviously, it is definitely a challenge over the years. So our aims as a festival, we are technically not a science festival, we are a research festival. So we dabble in all of the faculties. And we're really interested in highlighting the impact and relevance of research and researchers tackling society's global challenges. We want to change and challenge public perception of research and researchers, kind of maybe bust a few myths, break a few stereotypes. And again, similar to what Laura said, raising awareness and interest of research as a career option. So the kind of things we're interested in, we like cool research, and cool research might be, a technology for heart operations that is like ready to go, or it could be a very theoretical thing. So, I mean, it's cool is very much, it's about actually, a lot of the time it's about how passionate you are as a research. We love to hear about unexpected topics. We had a talk about sociology. Did you know you can actually write sociology papers about RuPaul's Drag Race? So, highlighting unexpected topics. Researcher journeys. So are all researchers people who had straight A's forever and are now professors? Actually, no. There are people who came through non-traditional routes. There are people who didn't do fantastic at school, who maybe worked in trades or office jobs or the arts, and people who are researchers who aren't a PhD student or a professor, but maybe they're people who work in technical stuff, there are lots of ways to be a researcher. Researcher funding, teaching people a bit about that, because I mean, you're probably all aware of the fact that the public perception of who funds research and what the motivations are, for research can have very fundamental effects on how people feel about the research and how it can be used. You know, do you have any interesting collaborations within the university, external to the university? And as Laura said, I mean, there's a big emphasis on having stuff being interactive, having the audience members being an active part of what's going on, whether that could be as simple as having a really engaging chat in a text box while a talk is going on that the speaker responds to, or having really hands-on activities where kids can get their hands really messy. And for those of you who are sitting back there thinking that's all very well and good for all researchers, yes, even your research can be made into something cool. I've written comedy routines about theoretical quantum physics, so we can make something cool about what you're doing. So in the before times, obviously, we had in-person events. So we did school visits, mostly primary school, some secondary school, the odd early years. So I've talked to 5-year-olds about chemical engineering. We did a lot of drop-in activities, museums, shopping centres. So on the right, you can see a lady who has been doing her grocery shopping and is now chatting with Marco Piani, who some of you may know, about quantum mechanics. So it's just in the East End of Glasgow, people going about their day encountering quantum physics. Talks and performances, live experiments, film showings with question and answer sessions. Obviously, these kind of pictures are just like they're stressing us all out. Everyone's unmasked and close together. We haven't done this for a couple of years now. So we switched to digital. So you can still do workshops and talks, videos, podcasts. So there's a nice podcast this year on our website about quantum mechanics, which is definitely, if it's a very relaxing listen. Twitter events. So if you're familiar with the Global Science Show, it's kind of like a day-long Twitter event. And then we've got one specifically for Explorathon, and then exhibitions. And really going forward, we would very much like to be back in museums and supermarkets next year. And we very much hope it's the case, but the future is definitely hybrid. We have learned a lot in the last couple of years, and I'm sure the other festivals today will agree that there's stuff we want to keep even when we get back to in-person events. And I think one of the big things that we have the last couple of years is we've been able to do a lot more pan-Scotland events. So rather than being on our own little enclaves in each city, and like, you know, nothing happening more than 5 miles from a university, being able to have stuff that involves a lot of different people and, you know, is able to be accessed by people across Scotland and indeed across the world. So we had a Pecha Kucha with all different researchers, Scottish Research Showcase, Herstory Makers, which is a competition format for female identifying researchers, an editathon for Wikipedia, and even an Explorathon quiz. And this kind of online collaboration and extended reach is something that we want to keep even as we hopefully move back to in-person events. And again, you know, I feel like I'm repeating Laura a lot here, but there's probably a lot of similarities in how all the festivals approach. And we're very interested in providing support because we're run out of the universities themselves. We can do a lot of one-on-one support. So if you kind of say, I want to be involved, but I've no idea where to start, I will quite happily, and we have the resource to really just sit down over a coffee or on Zoom and say, tell me about your research, tell me about what you're interested in, what you would like to achieve, and actually kind of really start from nothing and build some interesting ideas. We have training sessions. We've done over the summer stuff on digital content, accessibility and evaluation. Again, training sessions, we've found digital training sessions online have worked really well. And it's actually allowed us to pool our expertise from all the universities. So you get a much more comprehensive training session. And again, it's being part of one of these festivals means you get event evaluation, you get event support. So you're not stepping out there on your own to try and engage the public, that you're not trying to do everything, you're not trying to master everything, and you've really got people who have your back. And I'd say for Explorathon, we're really we really want to make sure that we are a suitable place for people who are taking their first steps or want to try something new. If you want to try something new and take your first steps, you should absolutely talk to Edinburgh Festival, Glasgow Science Festival, Orkney Science Festival. But if you really just want to start small and kind of start within your university, you can also start with Explorathon or do all of them, because as Laura mentioned, this is a lot of fun. So just do all of the science festivals. That's the plan. And if you want to get involved, as I said, Explorathon for this year has just finished. But that does mean you can go to our website, explorathon.com. I'll have it at the end, and check out what we have done for this year to kind of maybe give you some ideas, that you can take to Laura and the Edinburgh team by the 15th, I think it was. We'll just all plug each other all year round. So generally, May to June, we'll open a call for ideas. And as I said, this could be, I want to do exactly this, and this is how I'm going to do it. Or it can be like, I want to try something, what can I do? Over the summer, July, August, we'll help you develop ideas, we'll provide training and support. And then in September, the events happen, evaluation. And then October, you get to relax or apply for another festival. So if you'd like to know more, these are the different contacts. Rachel Elliott in Aberdeen, Kirsty Ross is in St Andrews for this, Zara Gladman is in Glasgow, and then there's the public engagement team, Strathclyde. And you can also go to our website, see what we've been up to, maybe get some inspiration. Thank you very much.
Well, what a wonderfully diverse range of activities and people you've got there, Suzanne. I look forward to asking some further questions at the end. But in the meantime, we're going over to someone who is welcome at every science festival, and this is Mikey Jarrell of the Institute of Physics in Scotland. Mikey is public engagement manager there, and he provides a range of fresh and original events. And for this, he draws on a really varied background of creating and delivering events, and events he's produced have ranged from a conference in Amsterdam to a music festival in Croatia. Mikey has a degree in event management and an MSc in science communication. And Mikey, welcome indeed. And I'm looking forward to hearing what you're going to tell us about the Big Bounce.
Thank you very much, Howie. Thanks, everyone. It was a really interesting couple of presentations before that. I'll just share my screen now. Can you see the slide? Great. Yeah. So yeah, thanks, Howie. So yeah, my background actually is in event management, and I decided to transition over to science communication and public engagement a few years ago after I got a bit wanted a bit of a change from music and cultural events. But that's kind of where my background is. I suppose, like a lot of staff at the Institute of Physics, I'm not a physicist, although I did dabble in my youth. As one kind of aborted line of academic study before I went over to event management. But I'm personally fall into that category of, those who are science interested and want to see science as part of culture in the same way that music and the arts are. So I suppose I fall into into the same category as a lot of the audiences for a lot of science festivals that we'll be talking about. My role at the Institute of Physics at the moment is public engagement manager for Scotland, as Howie said, and so I look after a programme of public engagement activities and ongoing programmes in Scotland. And I'm sort of the only person really in the IOP who does public engagement in Scotland, and I have counterparts all around the UK and Ireland. So yeah, one of my main projects is the Big Bounce Festival. It used to be called the Festival of Physics, and it used to be in Edinburgh. It's now a community science festival for the East End of Glasgow. And it aims to improve attitudes to physics among communities that experience high levels of multiple deprivation in the region. And these are just one of the underrepresented groups that the Limitless campaign is targeting. It's the IOP's current big UK and Ireland-wide campaign to improve representation in the physics post-16 of those groups that are currently really underrepresented or experience a lot of barriers to careers in physics. So this, as I said, the the very deprived communities in the East End of Glasgow are just one of the underrepresented groups that the campaign is targeting. But in this case, for the Big Bounce, the young people are being influenced by their parents and carers in terms of their career choices, and so we want to influence those parents and carers. So this science festival is a bit different to the others in that it has a very specific purpose and remit. That being said, it's also there to offer the same things that that Laura's talking about with the Edinburgh Festival, in that it's about inspiring curiosity and awakening that kind of interest and passion about science in people that maybe wouldn't otherwise have it. So it serves two purposes really. The festival program is designed to attract family audiences by offering a free day out, and it's important that it's free, and we're lucky at the IOP to be funded such that we don't have to charge, and that's obviously really important for this particular audience. And it's a free day out with high quality workshops, science shows, hands-on activities, and in its new incarnation, it's in the half-term break, which is in 2 weeks' time in Glasgow. We also provide free lunch bags for young people, as they won't be getting school meals outside of term. So once through the doors, once we've got them in there with this really fun, interesting, engaging, hands-on stuff that the young people will be interested in, it's actually a bit of a trick, because then we target the parents and carers with lots of messaging about why they should be inspired about science. So it's actually really for the parents and carers as well as the young people. And we want to make them feel better about physics. It's not about teaching physics. It's not necessarily about really them going away understanding anything they didn't understand before. It's about attitude to physics specifically. And the idea is that then they would go home and they would talk to their young people about physics when maybe they wouldn't have done before. So previously we held it in Edinburgh, as I said, at Dynamic Earth, and it was called the Festival of Physics. We rehomed and renamed it in order to serve these new audiences last year. We picked the East End because a lot of public engagement with science in Glasgow is typically done in the West End, and so audiences in the East End were chosen. The venue is the Barrowland Ballroom. It's obviously an iconic building, and it's very beloved of local people, but it's also familiar to people in the East End in the way that maybe a university venue wouldn't be. And it's obviously not normally used for this kind of event. So as an event manager, it's a very appealing challenge to me to transform a space like that into a science festival. There is obviously a significant challenge in attracting these new audiences to the festival, even before the pandemic. In the end, in October last year, the festival was held online, but we designed it as far as possible so it still could meaningfully engage local audiences in the neighborhood, rather than with online events, it's easy to target a broader remit and is often desirable too. But in this case, we didn't want to. We wanted to introduce the local audience to the idea of a science festival in their area. So it's done by kind of targeted hyper-local marketing and engagement with local community groups and schools, but also just deliberately not telling anyone else about it, so that the people that were at the festival were the people we wanted to be there. Saying that, you always get, we had people in Italy who somehow found out about it and popped up on the chats, and that's fine, of course. But it was really about how do we keep a new festival people haven't even heard of before a local event whilst doing it online. And online content can also seem generic and be one-way engagement, like videos and PDFs to download. So we chose to live stream the shows on YouTube with the presenters and performers responding to the audiences in real time. But most crucially, the restrictions allowed us just to use the Barrowland as a studio rather than stream from presenters' homes. And this basically meant that it placed the festival in their local area, in the audience's local area. And we didn't have those talking heads on screens from their bedrooms. So it gave the nearest possible experience to a community science festival. It's not cheap doing that sort of videography and high quality live streaming, but it was something we were actually planning to do anyway, even before the pandemic, for certain shows, so that we could actually have a legacy recording of a lot of the stuff that happens at festivals. Because like with events, what happens obviously is they appear and disappear. So we were already planning to record things. So this was kind of the next logical step, was to live stream it too. So we sent activity packs also out to some of the worst off households in the neighbourhood, along with food parcels, with the help of our partners in the area in the sort of community engagement fields. And that meant they could take part in hands-on activities at home, as well as watching the online activities and shows. So I'm already slightly over time, but I have a 1-minute highlights video. I'll skip it actually. I'll put it in the chat. because it's a nightmare playing videos on Zoom calls anyway. You probably won't be able to hear it, but I'll put a link in the chat, and it's just a nice little 1 minute. Cost a lot of money, so I like to get as much money's worth as I can out of it by sharing it and things like this. So this year the festival is happily back at the Barrowlands, but this time in its originally envisioned form of an in-person community science fair. The main hall will host about 15 drop-in activities, from trapeze shows to running tracks to video games, all themed around physics, applications of physics and ways that it kind of impacts the real world. Other spaces in the Barrowlands, apart from this big drop-in hall, will also be used for bookable workshops and shows, things like piano dissections over from Edinburgh, I'm sure some of you will have come across before, some coding instructions for Mars rovers. Again, that's over from Edinburgh, so we have contributors from all across Scotland, and I'll get onto that at the end about how you can get involved. So the Physics on Show will include lots of climate change mitigation and adaptation this year to coincide with the COP the following month, which is what the festival was originally intended to do, and both have been postponed. So we're still linking a lot with COP, as are a lot of science festivals at the moment. And we think it's important that the young people in the more deprived areas of Glasgow share in the rest of the city's excitement, because again, the COP is in the west. We want to give them this sense that their city is somewhere that change can be made, and reinforce the messaging around accessible careers and educational paths that the rest of the festival will present. But it's not entirely about climate science, there's physics across the board. So overall, the Big Bounce will be a fun, free day out for families that are often underprovided for. And as the IOP's public engagement, we need to kind of serve the wider needs of our audiences, as well as the needs of that we ourselves want to focus on in terms of our kind of strategic aims. So this year, the festival will take place in 2 weeks' time on the 12th and 13th of October. So please check it out. If you want to watch last year's YouTube streams, they're still up there on a playlist. If you check those links there, you'll find them for a flavour of what's going to happen. Or find us on Facebook. Please do share with anybody who you think might enjoy it. We do run annually, and we will intend to still run annually, at least in Glasgow for next year. Or we are considering moving the festival around Scotland, so that we're not, because our remit as public engagement manager for Scotland is to cover as much of the country as possible. We do other activities, but we may move the Big Bounce somewhere else in a couple of years' time. But for now, it's in the autumn, and we start to accept calls for proposals for ideas in the spring each year. I usually circulate that via Super, so you guys should all see it. We're very welcome to ideas of all kinds, and we like to have as much of a diversity of physics featured as possible, with an emphasis on real-world applications, but also as you yourselves as physicists and researchers, and even as students, because that's the sort of stories we want to tell. It's, as others have said already, about the context of the science and about the people that do it. We're very happy to help with develop ideas. We also run a public engagement grant scheme, small grants of up to £2,500, which is separate to the festival, but we find that a lot of the projects that we fund we end up showcasing at the Big Bounce as well. So if you'd like to speak to me about potentially an idea you have for a public engagement project with physics, we have this pot of money available, and I can help you with those ideas too. Other than delivering activities, we are always on the lookout for volunteers, because it's a kind of quite complicated event with lots of moving parts, and we'd love to have people help us out in terms of being greeters, chatting to people, generally being enthusiastic about physics, and you can get a bit of experience in event management too. So do get in touch. It's not too late. Although we're in 2 weeks' time, we'd love to have a few more volunteers, although we've had a great response from Super so far. Thank you. And if you have an amazing idea that you want to drop in as a drop-in event, it's also not too late to get involved in this year's festival programme as a last-minute thing. So thank you very much for listening.
And thank